Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session on Orbitnote. My name's Rachel, and I'm going to be taking you through the session. Orbitnote is a follow-on session from Read and Write. And so if you know Read and Write already, or perhaps if you haven't explored it, one of the things that you'll notice in today's session is that you have access to all of those same features, and Orbitnote is particularly used when it comes to PDF. So it'll only work in being able to use this with PDF files. For any other files or any documents or websites that you want to be able to use these same tools, you will need to use Read and Write directly. So just to be able to give you that distinguish between why you'd use Orbitnote and why you'd use Read and Write, this will hopefully give you that little bit of an insight from there. So with Orbitnote, it helps us to make PDFs accessible and actionable. So you have the ability at the University of Canterbury to be able to use the version of Orbitnote, which will allow you to type directly on PDFs. You can highlight directly in those PDFs, and you can have any of that information read aloud to you when you're going through and using them from there. And with Orbitnote, as you'll see on the screen here, when you actually type on PDFs, you have that ability to use dictation as well as your prediction. So those same two tools that you may know from Read and Write are directly included within Orbitnote, allowing you to go through and do that directly. And so a couple of the key features that I'm going to mention today, one of them being text-to-speech. So being able to have any information read aloud when you're using a PDF. Text, so that ability to type directly on those PDFs, and also to be able to leave comments. So if you are accessing a PDF where perhaps there isn't room and you want to be able to take your own notes down, you can do that on the side of that PDF. And then you've also got that ability to actually highlight and collect all of those highlights into a document directly. And so with Orbitnote, the quickest way to get there is simply by visiting orbit.texthelp.com. I will pop that into the chat so that you've got that link directly. I'm going to take you through the process of installing the extension and showing you how you can then utilize the tools that are available to you. So all I need to do is simply open up a new tab. Okay, so on the sign-in screen that very first time, this is what you will see. So it will prompt you to use Google, Microsoft. You are using Microsoft to sign in. Please then, once this goes through, sign in using your University of Canterbury email address. Perfect. So it'll come up with that Microsoft sign-in process. You'll need to follow through your standard sign-in. Okay. I've had to sign in via Google. My account, for whatever reason, this morning isn't working, so I apologize for that. You would obviously sign in with Microsoft. Now, because you sign in with Microsoft, you will actually see OneDrive appear here rather than Google Drive. Now, one of the benefits of signing in via your OneDrive and opening files up from OneDrive directly is that all of your annotations that you make on those PDF files will be saved and stored for you. So it means that if you have opened a PDF, you've started going through and highlighting it, and for whatever reason, you get stuck halfway through and you have to close and leave. If you go back to that same file, opening it up from your OneDrive, you are going to have access to all of those resources directly. So you won't lose any of your annotations, and then you don't need to remember to download a copy of that. So just something to bear in mind. Once you actually get into this dashboard screen, you will see this prompt at the bottom that says install extension. So all you need to do is simply tap on to that install extension. I don't know what is going on. There we go. And this will take you through to the Chrome Web Store, where I can then select Add to Chrome and then Add Extension. That will then be added in directly through here. You can, of course, use that push pin to then have that appear at the top, as you can see here, which just means that it's easier for you to be able to quickly, anytime you need, hit, and it will take you into that dashboard like so. Once you're here, you can then either open from OneDrive, or in my case, I've got the PDF sitting on my desktop. So I'm just simply going to drag and drop that file in like so. Once I've opened that PDF, you'll notice that in this case, because I've actually gone through and already highlighted on this PDF, those highlights are actually already sitting there for me to be able to go through and use. So I'm going to just jump down to my second page in here just to be able to show you how that toolbar works. So for those that may have used Read and Write already or joined our session earlier this week, you will have seen some of these features already. So what I'm actually able to go through and do is I can select any of this text. Apologies, my mouse is not working for me today. And I can go up and use that play button to have this information read aloud to me.
There is little difference between the learning that takes place in humans and that in other animals.
And I can go up and press pause and stop. Within my settings, in a similar way to Read and Write, at the end of my toolbar, I can go to my settings and I can then change the language that's used for that directly. So I can simply go in. I apologize. Sorry, my mouse is not working for me today. And then I would be able to then go through, use that drop down to then select which language I want to have that set as. So say, for example, I want it as English UK. I can also go through and change things like the text size that's used. And I can also change the voice as well. So of that text to speech, I can go in and I can simply select a different voice. So I can scroll through that list. I can set it as an Australian female. And I can change that voice speed to slower or faster if I need it to from there. Perfect. So one of the other things that I'm able to do with Orbitnote is I've got access to my dictionary definition. So I can simply select any word within my PDF, come up to my dictionary, and then this is going to give me that definition of that word directly. You've also got access to a picture dictionary, which can help aid in that comprehension of those words that you might be unsure of. So anytime I simply tap and select a word, this is going to prompt with that definition that I can press play to have read aloud.
Noun. The scientific study of the mind and behavior. He studied child psychology.
And that's going to then allow me to go through and access that directly. You've also got your translation tool. So again, I could select that translation and have that translated.
Psychologia.
This is done on a single word level, so just something to keep in mind from there. The other thing as well is when we are using PDFs in a similar way to Read and Write, we have our screen masking. And this can either be used as that reading window that'll allow you to focus on that information as it's being read aloud to you. Or you can go into your settings and you can apply a color tint overlay for your entire screen, simply toggling off your reading light. And then you can change things like how opaque the background color is that's used to tint that screen. So currently I have a pink overlay on that screen there, and I can simply toggle that monitor icon off to be able to revert it back directly. The other thing that you've got access to within Orbitnote is the screenshot reader. So as an example, if I come up, say I want to read this heading at the top, which if I try and click onto it, I'm unable to do so. And that's because it's inaccessible. And what we mean by that is sometimes PDFs may be photocopied, they might be scanned, they may have little text boxes that have information in that actually if we try and select it like so and go up and press play, it won't actually allow us to select that text. And so what we can do is we can tap onto this little icon here called the screenshot reader. This will turn my mouse or my cursor into a plus sign. This essentially then acts as your crosshairs. So I could then draw across the word psychology as an example.
Psychology.
And that's going to then allow me to have that read aloud to me directly. Now you can do it on a single word. It could be a passage of text. It could be a paragraph of text that you want read aloud directly. The other thing that you have access to within Orbitnote are the highlighters. So with the highlighters, I can go through and I can start highlighting key parts of information on my PDF like so. And I can go through and I can either use just one color or multiple. You may have a set idea as to why you might use different colors depending on what it is you're looking for. So I can go through and I can simply highlight all of those parts that I need within that PDF directly. What I'm then able to do once I've finished highlighting and reading that paragraph within the PDF is I can come up to this icon here, which is the 4 arrows in a circle, which when I hover over it says collect highlights. When I tap onto this, it gives you two options. You can either choose to collect this based on the position that they sat in the PDF, or you can group all of the highlights by color. So I could say I want all of my yellow highlights, all of my blue, green, and pink. Now, for whatever reason, if you've decided that maybe you want to separate highlights into two documents, say maybe I want my blue and pink for whatever reason, and then yellow and green in two separate documents, you would just simply deselect those colors, and then they wouldn't pull through when you tap OK. From here, this is then going to generate a Word document for you. Again, mine has generated this in a Google Doc, so I apologize for that. It's just I wasn't able to sign in using my Microsoft account at the moment, but this will then pull all of those highlights into that single document. And it'll then reference back and it'll link to that PDF that you've highlighted those parts in directly. The other thing that we were able to do, and I'm just going to go through and deselect all of that for you just at the moment, is that I've got the ability to actually type on my PDF directly. So up in the toolbar up here, you'll see the T for text. This then simply means that I can actually go in and start making my own notes on that PDF. So I could simply type and I can continue to type my notes. I have the ability to also change the font color that's used, and I can make that bigger or smaller as I need to, and I can resize that box and then position it wherever I need on my PDF like so. I've also got the ability to use our text prediction tool. So this will then come up with that bank of words. So as I start to type, you can see there, I just need to write those first few letters of psychology.
Review.
As
well.
And then I'm just simply tapping using my mouse.
Behavior. Behavior. Very. Views.
And I can then enter those in like so. The other thing that I can also do is I can use voice dictation with the headset icon. It is a purely objective experimental branch of natural science. Full stop. This will then enter in everything that I've just said into that text box like so. I can then tap to insert that directly into my document, and that will then stay within that PDF. Now, depending on the PDF that you're using, you may find that you don't have enough space, like in this case here, to leave those notes on the PDF. So what I might want to do is I might want to say, okay, I want to give this some additional information. And so when I select any text from my PDF, you'll notice this little pink comment icon appears. And in a similar way, this will then appear on that right-hand side of my PDF. So rather than having them take up space, I can leave my own notes in here. And again, just like before, I have that ability to use that talk and type and prediction. And I can also use that text to speech to have that comment read aloud to me directly. When I tap OK, that's going to then simply insert that directly on that PDF, just in the side panel. So it's not going to take up that space on that PDF from there. The other thing to know is that when I use Orbitnote, as I mentioned at the start, depending on how you open those PDFs up and what you actually need to do with that PDF once you've finished, if you open it via OneDrive from the dashboard, all of those highlights are going to stay there and all of your text annotations and notes that you've made. But what about if you need to print this off, or maybe you want to make sure that you have all of those highlights collected and to be able to download it, say if you've just done that drag and drop PDF like I did today, what you'll notice is in this bottom right-hand corner, I have this little download option. What this then allows me to do when I press onto it is this is going to include all of those annotations and highlights that I've made on that PDF. I can then simply tap download. And this is going to then prepare that document for me. It will take time depending on how big your PDF file is. So just keep that in mind. And then what that'll do is it'll simply download that PDF file. I can then open it up and you'll see all of my text notes are here, all of those highlights that I made on that PDF, and I can print and share that file as and when I need to. As I mentioned before, obviously, if you've opened it through OneDrive, they will continue to stay there directly. So just coming back to my slides for a moment, just to go over a couple of things. As I said, with Orbitnote, you can use this in Chrome or Edge, and then obviously you'll be able to see that OneDrive symbol. And as long as you open those files up directly, you'll be able to do that. You can also open files directly from OneDrive. So if you go via your OneDrive and open with Orbitnote, those PDFs will open for you as well. And then in terms of resources, we do have some training videos within our TextHelp Academy that will give you sort of a bit of an overview of how those text annotations work. For all those read and write tools, so your text to speech, your word prediction, they all sit within read and write directly because they are the same tools from there. So I'm going to just open up to any questions that might have come through. So one of them, thanks, Brian. Orbitnote doesn't have its own app. It is just accessed via a web page, and it is an extension that you'll need to install. So once you actually add that extension, all I need to do is simply tap onto that and it'll load that dashboard for me to be able to access and open those PDFs. Yeah, so Andrea, the recording was should be shared by the Assistive Technology team. So as long as you've registered, they should be able to forward you a copy of the link to watch it back. Perfect. It doesn't seem like there are any other questions. I will just pop up our details on the end of the screen there. So if you do have any questions following today's session, perfect. Thanks, Samuel, for popping that in. So all of the recordings will be made available so that you'll be able to access these. I apologize again for the technical difficulties that I was having at the start. But as I said, you will have this recording to go back to, and hopefully that's been useful. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. I'll stick around for a few more minutes if there are any other questions.